Hello, hockey fans, and welcome to this one-of-a-kind hockey event. Today, like we do every day in the NHL, we're celebrating LGBTQ inclusion with not one, but two NHL teams and their local hockey community. Two rivals, Buffalo and Pittsburgh, teaming up for respect and spreading the message that hockey is for everyone. I'm your host, Jonas Worth from You Can Play Project. And I want to jump straight into this amazing panel because I really want them to be the highlight of today. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell a little bit about their hockey story. Let's first start with you, Bayne.
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Jonas, and to the Pittsburgh Penguins and Buffalo Sabres for putting this together and historic Pride Night with both teams involved. My name is Bayne Pettinger. I hail from the west coast of Canada. I worked at Hockey Canada for 12 years as manager of hockey operations there, where I attended several World Juniors, World Championships, Olympics, you name it, anything that kind of was Hockey Canada with the men's team side. I was kind of the road manager for them. So that's how I got my feet wet in hockey. And now I've been with CAA Sports, which is Creative Artist Agency. And we represent some of the biggest names in the industry with, Crosby and, Seth Jones, to name a few, David Pasternak, Kane, Taves, the list goes on and on. But I've been with CAA now for 2 years. And I'm based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and am responsible for recruiting and servicing and everything to do with CAA clients. So I'm excited to be a part of this panel today and have an open, honest dialogue here with this group.
Thanks very much. Just down the road in Buffalo, we have Alex.
Thanks, Jonas. Thanks to you again, and thanks to the Penguins and my Buffalo Sabres for the opportunity to do this. So I'm a hockey referee based out of Buffalo. I've been officiating since the 2006-2007 season with USA Hockey. It's 12 years old when I started. Started right after my last year of Pee Wee hockey when I realized that playing hockey was definitely not for me because I'm not very good at it, and I'm still not very good at it. Nowadays, I'm a referee on the Division I women's side for ECAC Hockey and College Hockey America. And then on the men's side, I'm a linesman for Atlantic Hockey. I still work mostly youth games, some high school here and there, some Division III college here and there. Outside of officiating, I did intern for the Sabres for 2 seasons, the 15-16 and 16-17 season. And I was also the officials host during the 2018 World Juniors in Buffalo. So that's kind of my hockey resume.
Excellent. Well, it's great to have someone from the referee community. It's a community we often overlook, and it's extremely important, especially in achieving our goals. Over to Pittsburgh, we have Adam.
Hi, everybody. Jonas and everybody, thank you so much for putting this together. My name is Adam Kaneser, and as was mentioned, I'm here in the City of Champions, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I am the co-founder and player of the Pittsburgh Tigers, which is a queer hockey team that we play based out of the Pittsburgh Ice Arena in New Kensington. And my journey to hockey didn't start here in Pittsburgh. I'm from Northwest Indiana, just near Chicago, but the Blackhawks were blacked out on local television at the time, and so I became a Nordiques Avalanche fan and a Penguins fan since the early days of being 7 and 8, watching players like Miroslav Shatan and Valeri Kaminsky showing that you can score and still have a good time playing hockey without having to punch somebody in the face. And so I met my husband playing hockey in New York City, where I played for the very first time as an adult in the Chelsea Challenge, which is a gay tournament put on by the New York City Gay Hockey Association. And we subsequently moved 5 years later to Pittsburgh, where we started our team now. And, it brings us all together. We even got married at the Penguins Arena. So, hockey changes lives, even for us too.
Wow, thank you for that. And thank you for the shout out, not just to the Nordiques, but also NYC Gay Hockey Association, one of our favorite groups. So we're going to get right into it today. I'm going to ask a quick question to everybody. because we see that there's been quite a bit of progress when it comes to LGBTQ inclusion in hockey, certainly over the last decade. But 2020 has certainly, and now 2021 has certainly been a time for reflection. What do you think is the current state of LGBTQ safety, awareness, and inclusion in the hockey world? Actually, to be a little bit more inclusive, I think I should first let Jeff introduce himself. What do you think? We will edit that part out.
You know what, Jonas, you've heard it all before, and the story gets old quick like me, but thanks so much, Jonas. It's always great to see you and work with our friends and partners at You Can Play for this monumental event with Pittsburgh and Buffalo. And I'll get to Buffalo in a second, but I'm a Canadian military boy, growing up, loving hockey, playing hockey for 21 years. And as a military brat, we traveled around a lot, not only across our own country, but overseas. And I think that's where I learned my love for travel, and certainly, being dropped into other cultures and appreciating what everybody has to offer has certainly led me to where I am today. My travels led me to high school in the Niagara area, where I attended in the mid to late 80s a lot of Buffalo Sabres games. I'd go across the border and sit in the oranges and watch the Sabres. In fact, I knew I wanted to get into an art career when I actually won the banner night one night when they were playing the Whalers. I forget what the banner looked like, but I drew it up and went over there and won that, and loved attending the Sabres game. And growing up also, became best friends in Germany on an Air Force base there with legendary Bill Ranford, who played 15 years in the NHL and now coaching 15 with the LA Kings and 4 Stanley Cups. So I knew very early on, playing road hockey with Bill, that I wasn't going to make it too far. So I followed my passion of art and got into marketing and communications, and then ended up in Edmonton working for a firm called Calder Bateman Communications, working with Dr. Chris Wells at the University of Alberta at the time. And we worked on a project called nohomophobes.com, which became a teaching tool for leagues like the NFL, NBA, and NHL with You Can Play, which was exciting. And from there, we saw the data that homophobia certainly was spiking up during sporting events, major sporting events. So we knew we had to do something there. So we worked, with the NHL, who we met very, very quickly after coming up with the idea for Pride Tape, and the You Can Play team as well. And now it's been 5 years in. It's been quite an interesting experience. I've met a lot of wonderful people around the world, and we're trying to target hatred and fight homophobia in hockey and sports with You Can Play, and just really excited for the opportunity to get to talk a little bit about it today. So thank you so much.
Excellent. And we teach respect and accountability. So the first thing I will do is apologize for almost missing Mr. Pride Tape. And I'm actually gonna reverse the order of the questions and have Jeff, you go first. What do you think is after just under 10 years of You Can Play, we just passed the 5-year anniversary of the existence of Pride Tape. What do you think the status of LGBTQ inclusion in hockey is in 2021?
Well, I think we have a long ways to go, but optimistically, we've seen a great deal of change. Just, one of my roles of volunteering is monitoring and creating a lot of the social media for Pride Tape. And I'll tell you right off the bat, it was a tough go the first 6 months, 5 years ago. Personally, I get weighted down in a lot of the feeds, and the hatred was really prevalent. It was really difficult to deal with, but seeing the NHL step up, teams, players, you name it, officials, organizations, basically calling that hate out online and fighting it and saying, look, if this is the way you're going to be or operate, we don't want that hatred in our building, and you're not welcome in our building. So seeing teams stand up against hatred was a real bright spot, and it continues to grow. It continues to get better. I mean, obviously an event like this with Pittsburgh and Buffalo and You Can Play is a testament to how far we've come. I think it really sets the bar moving forward. It would be nice to see all teams follow suit. In fact, we've had a few teams reach out even since last Saturday because of this event, looking to do events like it. So I think we've obviously been heading in the right direction. I do think we have a ways to go, but like nohomophobes.com, Pride Tape's predecessor, we're able to chart the data online and see that homophobic language, hurtful and hateful language, has been on the decline over the last 5 years. So we're really optimistic, and we're now in 32 countries with Pride Tape, and every state and every province in North America. And we have a lot of passionate ambassadors out there that are doing all the hard work. So we're very optimistic where we're headed. So, but again, we have to give all the credit to the hockey world, because it's those young people, those players and their parents, that are doing all the heavy lifting.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for that. And, the website you're referring to is actually a collaboration between both teams, where they've literally gathered all the people that they work with year round and highlighted those people. And one of those groups is Adam's group. So Adam, in the Pittsburgh area, in your hockey universe, what do you think is the state of LGBTQ inclusion? And do you see the evolution there?
So again, my perspective can only be limited to my experiences, right? And I hesitate to go too far beyond that to be general, but what I can say is this: I have seen progress, especially coming from organizations like the Pittsburgh Penguins, while also seeing the necessity of it every day when I show up in the locker room, or before COVID, right? When we were playing out on the ice. I mean, it really still happens to this day. Every game almost, somebody has a slur that they want to throw out at us, or, these kinds of things happening. And it's encouraging to see that sort of the arbiters of sort of hockey culture, whether it's the Penguins or larger organizations, are starting to take more concrete steps, and it feels a little bit less like lip service in the way that it might have in the past. And you probably know as well as anybody else that when You Can Play launched, it caused a little bit of a tremor in some kinds of ways, but there was a real kind of difficult negotiation of walking this fine line of trying to be inclusive, but not upsetting people too much. And I remember during the first initiatives, it was sort of like, we're trying to make sure we want you to feel supported, but we're not going to go so far as to name homophobia as the actual problem. And if you remember, finding information about these in the early days, it was almost like you were trying to name the ill without giving it the actual name that it had. And so now I think there's a much more concerted effort on tackling homophobia specifically as an issue, and not trying to put it under the blanket of, we're all in this together, but we have to be very specific about the things that we're calling out if we want to stamp them out. And I'm happy to see that it appears that there's real momentum building on that front.
Yeah, that's actually a really fantastic point, because we are fortunate to work with the league office at the NHL and a variety of people at every club, and the authenticity of engagement and doing more, a little bit more, is often behind the scenes, and we don't really get to see it. But we hope that the final impact is that commitment to equity and inclusion trickles down to young players. And Alex, you're on the front lines. You see this all the time. And, we started just saying, hey, we're trying to get rid of casual homophobia. Alex, in games, are you seeing this get a little bit better? What's it like? You referee at so many different levels. I think you have maybe some great insight on what the reality of inclusion is at all levels.
Yeah, so like Adam and Jeff said, there's been some progress, but we still have a ways to go. I'll tell you, 2 years ago at the 2019 New York State Hockey Tournament, I was lining a game. I was called absolutely horrible things by a team. So, and that was just 2 years ago. So obviously we still have a long ways to go, but I will tell you that hearing the chirps and stuff thrown out by teams, they've gotten away from the, just casual homophobia. Like, obviously they still say nasty things to each other, but they stray away from blatantly homophobic remarks. but I will agree. There's a long way to go, and it's particular. It starts at the youth level. You know, telling the players the way they need to behave, and credit where credit is due to USA Hockey. Right after the season following that 2019 incident, they did upgrade any use of a gender slur, homophobic slur, or racial slur. They upgraded it to a match penalty. So credit where credit is due there, because that's kind of where it starts as well. Is you need to have the ability to enforce stuff like that. So give a lot of credit to USA Hockey for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're saying the same thing in Canada with Hockey Canada and their actions, action oriented, journeys and allyship. It can be really impactful. And we're seeing a lot more of youth education and coaching education. I don't want to forget about Bayne, but I actually, in addition to getting your viewpoint on this, I actually have a question that's specifically for you as an agent who works with a lot of NHL players, especially some of the younger players. So in addition to giving your sort of, view of how the world of hockey has progressed, do you see some of these younger players as being a little bit more accepting, maybe than, the earlier versions of the folks you represented?
Yeah, definitely. I'll start with the first piece there. I can only speak, like Adam said, to my experience, right, in my world and my story. I do see the feedback that I've had. I've just recently come out in November quite publicly with Pierre LeBrun there, and then through a Hockey Night in Canada piece. And the support and the feedback in the hockey world has been overwhelming. But that's my story. I haven't faced that angst or any of the the oppression that's still out there. As far as our younger clientele, 100%. I think that the tougher conversations that I had were with the parents. I don't think anyone's born to hate or anything like that. The kids that I advise, the youth players that are 13, 14, 15, 16, the next generation that are promising, hopefully they can be NHL players. I see them, it's like water off a duck's back to them. They're I could only imagine what it's like to go to high school in 2020 compared to when I went back to high school. But yeah, for our youth, I think, you touched on it, Jonas, there, that we have to give them some credit, that, everyone's kind of hating on these millennials and these youth, that they're glued to their phones and that they, don't know what the real world's like. But from a compassion and empathy side, I think we definitely owe a lot of credit to our youth. And, the clients that I advise are more than willing and accepting. And for them, it's really a non-issue, which is exactly how I want it to be,
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think we're seeing, for those of us who also coach at the youth level, that peer-to-peer accountability is starting to be a little bit more natural for folks. Like if you hear any version of casual homophobia, even if it was unintentional, players are more likely to call each other out and say, "Hey, we don't use that language here," or what do you mean by that? And I think Jeff's website that predated Pride Tape and still exists, by the way, is very relevant to that and helping that. Jeff, I want to talk a little bit about Pride Tape, because you can play works on education and raising awareness and some of these events, and Pride Tape in itself it's a visual demonstration. It's a visual demonstration of your commitment to making hockey in particular, and now many sports, other sports as well, it's a gesture, right? And so it's gone global. Can you tell us a little bit about the growth and demand for Pride Tape at all levels of hockey and abroad?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jonas. I just first want to echo what Bayne was saying about the youth. I would say what's driven Pride Tape to where it is today has been thanks to the young hockey player. They're actually the one going to their parents and saying, "I've heard about this. I want this because I want to show that all my friends should be allowed to play the sport that they love. And in fact, hockey is for everyone." So, and the parents are the ones that are telling us these stories about their kids, being proactive and understanding that this is incredibly important. When we created the idea around Pride Tape, we had no idea, to be perfectly frank, on what it was going to do or where it was going to go. We just wanted to figure out if we could actually make the tape, because initially it was just a photoshopped visual of multicolored rainbow tape on a stick, on a poster that was going to be a traditional ad campaign, and hopefully to end homophobia in sport, a lofty goal. But when we found out that we could actually get the tape made, we got really excited, but we had no idea how to do it. And we also had to raise the money that was required to print the first 10,000 rolls. So that's when I was able to be connected to Brian Burke of the Penguins. When he was down in Calgary, I drove down to Calgary and met him. And I'll be honest with you all, I was a little intimidated. I was a little nervous because of the on-air persona, but Brian was incredibly gracious and invited me to stick around and watch the Kings and Flames practice before the evening game. And we just talked about, the opportunity and the potential for this with You Can Play. And what we did is we did a little launch for the Kickstarter campaign to raise the money to get the tape printed. And that's where the lift happened. It started with the Guardian newspaper the next day in the UK. And then all of a sudden the NHL clubs started calling. It was, my boss, Frank Calder at the time, I'd be on my phone and he would come in and put a napkin on my desk and say, the Detroit Red Wings are interested. The San Jose Sharks are interested. The Florida Panthers are in. And again, that momentum, we just got really excited about the opportunity to work with the NHL and use their platform as we are with this upcoming game to take it to another level. And now, thanks to, not only the NHL, but all of the ambassadors that use the tape and at the grassroots level, it's now available in 32 countries where people are using the tape and all across North America. But again, I just have to keep going back to the youth and the grassroots level because that's what makes Pride Tape a success every day. I mean, we receive photographs and cards and letters about, what it's done for them personally and their families and also their communities. So, we need to keep working at it. We need, we keep saying we need more Curtis Gabriels of the San Jose Sharks who uses the tape. If we can get more NHL players to keep it on their stick, and it's starting to happen, it will encourage those young people who are looking for heroes at the professional level. I mean, right now their heroes are their friends and their parents and people in their community, but it would be great if it was happening more often in the NHL, but that's where we're headed. We're getting there, and we're optimistic about it.
I'm actually really glad you bring that up, because Curtis, you could argue that he is more of a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert, right? And that, we see hockey is for everyone as our destination. We know we have a way to go. We see it as a journey, just like allyship is a journey, and Pride Tape is a great way of opening the door for people who need to focus on winning, right? The competition on the ice. And so we're not expecting every NHL player, every NHL ambassador to become a diversity and inclusion expert, but Pride Tape is a great gateway for them to sort of learn a little bit more about what it means to the entire community. And actually one of those communities within the community are the referees. And I think we often overlook their role in eradicating instances of racism, of sexism, of homophobia. So I wanted to ask Alex, do you think you play a crucial role in making the sport a little bit safer for all underrepresented groups in hockey?
Yeah, absolutely. It really, I guess it really technically does start with us, because the only way anyone is going to learn is if we enforce the rules that we currently have. So I'll tell you, from the time I began officiating in the state of New York, where I officiate, any racial slur, it was only racial slur for the longest time, was a match penalty. So we kind of eradicated that kind of language through the strict enforcement of that. And now we kind of have to turn our sights on adding homophobia to that as well. I mean, I remember something from a game I had a few years ago. It was Local prep school they actually play in a Canadian prep school league. So they play a lot of GTA area schools. So we were playing Hockey Canada rules. And I believe any homophobic slur is like a gross misconduct under Hockey Canada rules, which is one of the worst possible penalties. My linesman reported hearing something to me. I was one of the referees on the game. I went over and talked to my partner about it, and he said, "Do we really need to call that?" And so basically, when you hear someone you're working with say something like that, that's where you need to step in as well and say, "Yeah, we need to call that." And I even encourage guys to call it out, like in the locker room if they hear their partners using it or something. Because if they're using it in the locker room, how do we know they're going to call it when they hear it? When they're out on the ice. And a lot of the times it's usual just casual homophobia. It's not intended to be malicious or anything. Like pretty much all the officials in Buffalo know who I am and know I'm out and are completely supportive of me. But occasionally, I mean, for all I know, one might make a slip up and say something. So basically enforcing the rules that we have in the book is the biggest way to start it.
And
Yeah.
if I could just really quickly, from a player perspective, Jonas, add to this, because I do want to say that the referees have been our biggest allies at our local rinks, generally speaking. And I want to give a lot of credit to those who are in the officiating roles, because they've come to our defense more than anybody else would. They take it seriously. They have a great rapport with our team. And to your point, it's about the enforcement and showing people that there are consequences for these things. And so I just want to give a little love to the referees out there in the world that I know get a lot of earfuls from people, but from us, a relatively vulnerable group sometimes, it really means a lot. And, we've had instances where players had to get banned from playing against our team, and things like that. So, it's nice to have folks in our corner as well, because we can police people as much as we can by trying to say things, during stoppages of play or, what have you, but it's still just us. And unless it comes from somewhere else that might incentivize them to correct their behavior, they might still just keep chirping along all the way. So love to the referees out there. Just want to make sure we're all clear on that.
I appreciate it. And to that point, I will tell you that since it was upgraded under USA rules to a match penalty, I'll tell you, I've only had to call it one single time. And the kid that I called it on, I think it was a Bantam game or something, turned out to be, he went to the same school as one of my cousins. And the kids found out that I was gay and felt absolutely horrible about it. And it kind of worked out for all involved, because I mean, he was penalized properly and it was a really good learning experience for him. And I can guarantee you that neither he nor any of his teammates will use language like that again.
It's such a great example of the difference between impact and intent, because 99% of the time, when you're working with young men, especially, they will tell you, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way." Right. And so I think we're evolving with that climate to the point where even young players are starting to figure this out. And that is a bit of progress. It doesn't mean though that
I know he didn't mean it that way, but we can't use it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why we say there's no such thing as too young to teach about inclusive language. And Adam makes a really interesting point, because a lot of times our LGBTQ specific teams almost become advocates, right, for the community. So we see the work that NYC Gay Hockey Association does off the ice, the Montreal Dragons and teams all over North America. So I wanted to ask Adam, do you see these safer spaces, these LGBTQ specific teams, as having a bigger role than just showing up and playing? Like, what is your role in the hockey community, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can adequately convey just how important organizations like this really are. And, take it from somebody like me who didn't really find his footing in the gay world until he found his gay hockey people, right? Like, for people like us who may not fit into the margins of what has been stereotyped as being quote unquote gay culture, we're the hockey kids, right? We don't quite fit in there. Finding spaces like this is hugely important. And not knowing that they exist is part of the problem. And what we found really interesting here in Pittsburgh is that, we don't have the population of Toronto, New York, Montreal, Chicago. We don't have the extensive network of enough teams and things like that. So we're really kind of on an island just playing in a beer league out, 45 minutes outside of the city. And so that creates its own dynamic. And we've tried very hard to be specifically focused on the fact that we are inclusive of wherever you find yourself on the spectrum. And I'm really proud of our team, because what can often happen is that you find these teams getting siloed into like upper middle class white guys who all are playing hockey together. But we have everybody on the identity spectrum, from cisgender, transgendered individuals, men, women. We have straight folks who said, you guys just look like you have way more fun playing and you don't have a toxic environment on your bench, and I don't want to be a part of that anymore. And so they come out with us too, and we've kept us going, having social occasions. Obviously the pandemic has put a stop to that, but us getting together and going to a bar and watching a Penguins game and things like that, wearing like our team stuff out, it gets people asking questions. And it's this really interesting phenomenon of people saying, I didn't know that exists, that's really awesome. But then you still have people who say, I'd love to play with you, I just don't want people to know that I'm gay. And that's still something that we're really kind of working through here. But just last week, we'll also get emails like a mother who says, hey, my son wants to play hockey, but I think he's a little afraid to find a team like this. He's gay and isn't sure what to do. Can you guys talk to him? And so we have a role that goes well beyond just what happens on the ice. And I think it's helping create a dialogue and a cultural conversation that also doesn't just stop when we, leave the ice. That, inclusion is one thing, but this is all intersectional. And so we can't just talk about homophobia without kind of getting into the layers of homophobia and how racism colors that and how class differences color that. And so my hope is that we can continue this evolution of the conversation to not just say, well, homophobia is a problem, but which organizations then are going to benefit from that. And it's about showcasing sort of the vibrancy within these all minority communities who all stand to benefit from each other and kind of all have the same ultimate goal. And if we can make sure that we raise the tide, it lifts all ships instead of worrying so much about just one or two getting the necessary flotation devices, if you will.
Yeah, that's a really excellent point, because I think we often overlook, as human beings, we try to tick a box and categorize people. And, intersectionality is often the most forgotten thing in hockey. We look at the screen right now, right? We hope that in the future, this conversation can maybe happen, to people with Indigenous identities who are then able to bring their true selves and also identify as LGBTQ in their hockey experience. Race, social class, as you mentioned, first language in both countries, very, very influential. And we often forget about that because we just want to categorize people. And that's not really what hockey is about. Hockey is for everyone. It's just about bring your true self, whatever that is, whatever multiple identities there are. And people often look at pride games as like the sole solution, whereas we see them as the culmination of what NHL teams do year round, the work that they do in the youth space. We'd actually like to see, and we're starting to see a lot more teenage LGBTQ specific hockey teams. And I think, Adam, you'll find a few allies, and you can play in Pride Tape if you ever want to do that in the Pittsburgh area. And we'll help you find some coaches as well. But, I want to ask, this is a very rare event, right? This is the first of its kind. Buffalo and Pittsburgh collaborating. They created a full website of resources, including local LGBTQ organizations and charities people could get involved with, and highlight the work that they do the rest of the year. But what do you think is the most, and I'll ask this question to everyone, actually, starting with you, Jeff. What do you think is the most important outcome for a Pride Night of this caliber?
Well, I think, this being the first collaborative game between two teams is a fantastic place to start. I have a photograph on my wall hanging just off to the side of me here that was sent to me by the photographer, Rachel Lewis, a pro photographer for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And it was during one of his, during the Pride game for the Blue Jackets. And Rachel was there shooting. And there's one image where the player is skating by the boards, and a fan is holding up a sign that just says, "Thank you for accepting me." And to me, that really encapsulates the spirit or the opportunity. I think sometimes we overlook the fact that a small gesture can have a big impact, and something as simple as, you know, pride tape on a stick. Sometimes it's often criticized for being too easy and not working hard enough. But that, in fact, was the whole idea from the beginning, is that, you know, this is an opportunity for an individual player to make a statement and say something without even using words. And it was the individual's choice, not mandated by the team. Every player had the opportunity, or has the opportunity, to use the tape. And I think for these Pride games, it showcasing that makes a huge difference. And we see it because sometimes so much of this is community based, and working with the local organizations is incredibly important. But we actually get, you know, correspondence and from all over the world that, you know, a Pittsburgh Penguin fan sees the tape on Sidney Crosby's stick, and it makes them feel incredibly welcome and that they belong in the game. And for us, that's what it's all about. So the games are very important, not only to the local community and the local fans, but, you know, that gets put on television and it reaches out to so many more people. And it's such a wonderful thing. So hopefully they continue. And certainly what we see is there's a one-upmanship going on throughout the league, and not only through hockey, but other sports that the NHL has contacted us from. There's a lot of creativity. And that's what we love about this, the creativity of the fans, the ambassadors, and the teams and the players. You know, they're all trying something different to make a big statement, and we hope that it just keeps growing and they keep pushing each other with their creativity on what they can do. And certainly, again, this game in Buffalo is the height of all of that. Like, just when you look at the website for the game and everything that's planned, it's super exciting, and I just can't wait to see what, you know, the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames do for the Battle of Alberta. What are they going to do next year? Like, let's keep this going. Let's keep this going with every team and every league and every sport, because it is reaching young people and making a difference. They're staying in sports, and it means a lot to them. So I want to do a better job. We need to do a better job as Pride Tape to inform the teams and the players the impact that it's having out there. I think once they know how important it is for the young player, people will want to do a lot more. And I think we need to do a lot more.
Great.
Yeah,
Alex, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I think you put it really well, that this game in and of itself is like a really big achievement. Just because I mean, in the past, like, speaking as a Sabres fan, I'll be honest, I was envious of seeing nights that other teams put on. Like, I see the Devils do like a full on night and everything. Like all you know, the boards and everything in the arena, like the video boards and everything are all rainbow colored and everything. Meanwhile, you have the Sabres would change their logo on social media for the night and use Pride Tape during warm up and really leave it at that. But the fact that they're doing something of this magnitude between two teams and having all of us together speaking about it is just an enormous step forward. Even a few years ago, I remember my dad's company, they march in the Buffalo Pride Parade every year. So we were there getting our float ready. And I was even shocked to see You Can Play in the Sabres there. Like, I didn't expect them to be marching that year. And it was even that itself was an awesome surprise. And I really hope that there is a ripple effect to other teams in the area. Like, I mean, I obviously love the Buffalo Bills too. I would love to see something like this, happen with them maybe against the Pats next year.
Yeah, I'll jump in there too, just to second that, what Alex and Jeff said, that I think Pride Nights are a starting point, not an end point. I think it's a starting point for conversations, when a kid's driving home from the rink with their parents, or, I don't know who it would have more of an effect on, the kids, who I think are very accepting, or the parents themselves, that it was almost taboo to talk about that 20 years ago, So I think Pride Nights, and especially, the one with the teams doing it together, are just a starting point for conversations to carry on. And I think, I've found in my experience and any clients that I talk to, is that it's humanizing it. It's saying, well, I don't know anyone in the game that's gay, and then I can say, well, I'm your agent, I'm gay, and, so it's humanizing the issue. It's anything. It's having those uncomfortable conversations, to put a face to a name of, okay. And like, like Alex said, when the kid found out that, that you were gay, and that with the penalty there, it shouldn't take tying it to a human cause. But unfortunately in our society, that's kind of what we're drawn to, right? People are like, oh, that doesn't relate to me. I don't know anyone in the game, or I don't, but you look at this panel, obviously we're all on it for a reason. But I think that Pride Nights and the bigger glam you can do, and not just the bare minimum, like you said, of tape and changing a social media logo, but actually living it, and going home and having conversations and good dialogue, and just humanizing it, I think. So I think that's the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to, is just, the start of a conversation. And it may be one kid that goes to the game, or one adult, or a gay couple that goes and they finally feel safe in the rink, or anything, and I think that's the whole goal of it, is to start dialogue. And it's not a peaking point, but more of a starting point.
And to, I guess, continue that conversation, I think what you hit on about having the uncomfortable conversations and sort of forcing those conversations is one of those natural, I think, consequences of this that's very beneficial. And I think it's also very helpful to see continued collaboration like this on a large, true scale, because it also lends legitimacy in a lot of ways to sort of people in my position who might see, all right, well, maybe they're changing their logo, maybe they're doing this. How much are they actually invested in this? And does somebody actually have my back? Do they actually want me there? Or are they actually just doing this to get a cash grab and say, I'm ticking all the boxes of doing what I'm supposed to because that's what's expected of me? And the thing about hockey culture in some ways is that it's like, you never want to rock the boat. And there is a lot of that kind of pervasive feeling in general hockey about don't stick out, don't stand out, don't rock the boat. It's sort of this idea that we're all in this together. There's a right and a wrong way to be, but we have to allow each other space to figure out that there's maybe more a little bit beyond that. And we just need to feel like we're supported when we say, hey, we're here too. It's not we're trying to say that we're special, look at me. We're trying to, I don't know how this could be misconstrued. You know what I'm saying? But it's more just to say, hey, we're here too. So be mindful of our presence as you create this culture. And that once we can continue to do that, more and more people might feel empowered to say, yeah, I've been here all along. I've just been too afraid to say something for fear of rocking the boat, getting retribution, and the organization maybe isn't going to be in my corner because whose interests are being ultimately protected. So this does feel like a real shift from a past few years ago when Pride Nights really didn't seem to have those things together. And it really is doing something in the community. It's putting your money where your mouth is. And I'm very proud of the Penguins and the Sabres for doing that.
I really felt that rock the boat comment as a referee, because I can guarantee you guys don't want to take over games. Like they don't want to give out that penalty, but I think some people are afraid to because they're afraid of rocking the boat. But you kind of got to get over that step and just call the game.
Well, and I also like how you said we're all in this together, because there's another amazing group, and I want to give them a shout out called Black Girl Hockey Club. And they have put out this Get Uncomfortable challenge, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Those are the sort of conversations we have all the time. And when we try to help people in their journey of allyship, we say that these allyship skills actually apply all the way across the board. It's not just to the LGBTQ community. The things that we teach, respect, accountability, asking uncomfortable questions when the time is right, those apply. And what we would like to see on a panel like this in a few years is, a Black member of the LGBTQ community, which, you know, maybe we haven't made the space safe enough, a trans member, you know, on this panel, an Asian member, right? All of, you know, these underrepresented groups in hockey, and you know, our ability to make the space a little bit bigger, bring new people to the game. We believe that teaching about the journey and allyship and getting uncomfortable applies to all underrepresented groups in hockey. So I wanted to ask actually everyone to give everyone some tips, like, because you may have experienced the impact of allyship at some point in your career. So what would you say to NHL clubs, players, grassroots coaches and players, even fans, right? Because fans can go to an NHL arena and say, wait a minute, I don't want my team, I don't want my family to experience racism or homophobia or sexism in that experience. What advice do you have for people who are starting that journey in allyship based on some of the positive experiences you've had?
I can kick it off here. I think it's just putting yourself in someone else's shoes. You know, we're all comfortable and out, you know, in our own lives, but you don't know those that aren't, right? And so just because you can tie it to someone and go, oh, I know Bayne, you know, and I can relate to that. Like, you don't know who's in the closet or who's pondering what, or, you know, and you go back to that, you know, when Alex said, oh, the players say they don't mean it like that. It's like, okay, then what did you mean? You know, and you kind of have to get uncomfortable, and it's going to take some people to stand up here, whether it's in, you know, locker rooms. I play beer league hockey. I work obviously in hockey, you know, with a lot of straight coworkers, and it's putting them putting in my shoes, you know, of like, hey guys, but it's stopping the language and having, you know, I hate to say it, the kahunas to stand up and say, we don't say that here, or, you know, why do you say that? And you can't just dismiss stuff, is what I'm trying to say, you know. So for the average fan, the average player, NHL executive, agent, referee, you name it, you know, is willing to stand up, straight or gay, and you know, stomping out the language, you know, that has become too comfortable in our society, that, you know, we are shifting now. But I still think we do have a ways to go there. But I think it's people standing up, and not just, oh, is there someone gay in the room? Did we offend someone? It doesn't matter. You know, even if it's your best friend and you're just having a casual conversation, I think it's important to step up and you know, really change some minds and have those, as I said earlier, those uncomfortable conversations. You know, it doesn't have to be in front of someone that's out. It can be just, why do you say that? Even though if you don't mean it like that, don't use it like that, you know. And people may say you're ratting or whatever, or you're being sensitive, but it's going to take that to eradicate the language that we all, you know, despise, and that really gets under our skin.
Yeah, at the grassroots level, I'll tell you, seeking out the resources to make yourself an ally is really one of the biggest possible steps you can make. Like, I wrote an article about coming out as a referee for Outsports, the SB Nation blog a few years ago, and I mean, I love talking about this stuff. Like, if people within the Buffalo hockey community wanted to use me as a resource, like, I can guarantee you, myself and others, we would love to talk about this sort of stuff. So seek out those within your own area, that if you want more information, seek those people out within your own area. And I think that would be a massive step forward.
And I think it's also helpful to remember that, you know, for those who might not be part of that particular marginalized group or that particular group of people, don't kind of put it on them to always explain themselves and make them always have to do the legwork of educating. It's like, you know, the best things, and to piggyback on what you guys are saying, is there are resources out there. Inform yourselves, and don't make us always have to be the police about it. You know what I mean? If there's a conversation that's happening, if you hear it, yes, put an end to that. Speak up, say something, because otherwise it's just going to always boil down to the affected groups. And that's not really going to be helpful as a long-term solution. And it's kind of stamping those things out when you see them on your end, so that we don't necessarily have to be the ones who are continually being asked to explain why these things are problematic.
That's such a great point. I mean, I'll jump in what everybody's saying here. I mean, you don't have to, you don't have to put this all on your own shoulders. There are so many people out there doing such great work. There are amazing teams like the Tigers, and I'm connected to the Edmonton Rage out here in Edmonton, and the Calgary Pioneers in Calgary, and what the inclusive teams are doing in their own communities is amazing. I'm a little bit biased here, but I will say follow Pride Tape on Instagram. There we try and showcase at the grassroots level all these wonderful young people and their parents and clubs and organizations and what they're doing. There's resources out there. Follow Curtis Gabriel and Jessica Platt and Harrison Brown and Brock McGillis and so many others that are having the difficult conversations. They're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and there's so many others. Just start following people. Look at the resources available to you. There's resources available to you on the website for the event from Pittsburgh and Buffalo. Just start doing some digging, and we try and do that every single day, because we are a far ways away from being the people that should be talking about this. You all mentioned, Pride Tape is a great conversation starter. That was always its intent. Open yourself up to some new friendships. We have now thousands around the world that I never anticipated I would have. And so I reach out to them as often as I can to ask for guidance and assistance. So I would say, look, it takes everyone to make Hockey Is for Everyone work. And so that's what we try and do, is get everyone involved all around the world and just pick their brain and dig at some of these resources that are available to us. And it really helps.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's actually a really great way to bring us home here. We say that in essence, you may not know someone from the LGBTQ community, but that doesn't mean that maybe a family member belongs to the LGBTQ community. And families in 2021 don't look the way they used to look. And so we really love all these collaborations. And I think Jeff sort of alluded to, the concept of thinking globally and acting locally. And that's one of the most amazing things about this event on April 17th between Buffalo and Pittsburgh, is that there's a lot of local resources, whether, doesn't matter which city you live in. They've done a really good job there. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I think this is, really impactful. And again, this is a journey, right? We haven't fixed homophobia today. Hockey Is for Everyone is definitely a destination. And what we are trying to do today is have those uncomfortable conversations so that we can help the people around us in the hockey world, get better little by little. So thank you so much. Be sure to tune in on the 17th. Follow us on social media at You Can Play Team. And we'll see you hopefully in person at the next puck drop. Take care, everybody.